And now it's Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. And joining me on our show is Daryl Twerdahl, the Executive Director of Meals on Wheels, California. I'd love to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us, Daryl.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm really, really honored to be here. It's my pleasure.
I'm honored to have, thank you. And I'm honored to have you on our show because, you know, we spoke earlier and there's such tremendous need out there. Tremendous, more than ever. And each year it is growing. And you've been with Meals on Wheels for some time. And what I'd like to do is if you could tell our audience about what Meals on Wheels is, what they do. Let's start there, please.
Okay, so Meals on Wheels was actually founded in England during World War II when there was such need and there had been such destruction via the bombing, that women would make food, wrap it in a hot brick, and take it to the people who were homeless. Came to the United States in the 50s, and the mission of Meals on Wheels programs is to feed seniors in need. Meals on Wheels California is a state association which has many member programs, all of which in one way or another provide meals for seniors who are homebound, as well as we say more than a meal, a friendly visitor, a check-in, make sure that everything's okay with those seniors. So we really are the front runners and the people who can step across the threshold. So we feed anyone in need.
Let's talk about how many people Meals on Wheels has been feeding in California in, let's just say, the past few years, let's say since the pandemic.
Such a great question, Deborah, because prior to the pandemic, all the Meals on Wheels programs knew that there was undiscovered need among seniors for Meals on Wheels support. But we didn't have a way of getting at it because nobody was self-identifying for many different reasons. So before the pandemic, across the state of California, we were serving about 17 million meals annually. Since the pandemic actually ripped the Band-Aid off of what we couldn't see before, we discovered those seniors that we hadn't seen. So we rose to 29 million meals during the pandemic. And even though the expectation had been that most of those people would drop off the Meals on Wheels rolls once they could get out, that has certainly not proven to be the case.
29 million years. This year, million, let me say that, restructure that. 29 million meals since the pandemic, which is quite extraordinary. And that's throughout all of California, right?
Yes, and there are about 80 Meals on Wheels programs in California, and there are about 300 actual senior meal providers. So not all of them are called Meals on Wheels. Sometimes you have a Meals on Wheels light, which is coming out of a church basement or someone's, back kitchen or whatever, but just trying to keep our seniors fed. But Meals on Wheels has a formal structure, so we do it according to dietary restrictions. We work with the health department. We come up to all the nutritional standards, et cetera.
Right. You were saying that you actually have 7 types of
Yes, we have the medically tailored meals.
Yeah. And what does that mean, medically tailored meals, if you could tell people?
Yeah, medically tailored meals are those that are appropriate for a person's health condition. So we might have someone who has a heart disease, so they have to be very careful about sodium content, or we might have someone who has bad gums and can't really chew food, so we need to put them on what's called a soft diet. And if that is really extreme, then it can be a pureed diet. Or if, there are all sorts of, there's a diabetic diet, there's gluten-free, there are all sorts of things that we can do in individual Meals on Wheels programs to meet the individual need. And that's really what is unique. Meals on Wheels works in every community to meet the individual need of that person and make sure we know that person, which is why it's so important because isolation, has gotten to be so bad, especially with the pandemic. And isolation is considered now a medical condition. It is one of the things that is driving more illness. So very important that we can cross that threshold with that meal.
It's actually very sad to me, all the isolation, particularly with the elderly. They've lived their entire lives and given so much, whether it was to their community, their job, their families. And so many are now, alone and isolated. And is it the individuals that tend to reach out, or families that reach out to help get meals for them? Oh, and also, is it 3 meals a day? And how does this work?
Most programs provide 2 meals a day, but some do provide 3. Breakfast would be the 3rd meal if they provide it. So often a program will give a hot meal and then what we call a cold supper. And then if a client needs to have breakfast, that's often available. But the people who normally reach out are not the people who need the help. It's normally their neighbors, their friends. They're often their family. I receive all the emails on the Meals on Wheels California website of people asking about their, how their family can get meals. And what's so heartbreaking, Deborah, is in California, especially, people are not living near their children. And so you don't have often a family member. So Meals on Wheels really steps in and assumes that role for the family. And I get heartbreaking. I just got an email from a woman who lives in Oregon, and she said, I cannot afford to come down and take care of my mom. I need to stay here and have my job. I'm petrified about what's going to happen. So I connected her to her local Meals on Wheels program, her mom's, and it was great. They got all set up, and that's the way we work at Meals on Wheels.
Tell me, give us an example of when you go to someone's home and they accept the meal. Tell us, a typical visit, what that's like.
It can be anything from a grouchy person saying, just put it in the kitchen, to someone saying, oh, please come in, talk to me. And one of the funniest experiences I ever had when I began my Meals on Wheels career as a volunteer, the first or second time I delivered a meal, and I came back to the kitchen and I went into the executive director's office and I started crying. And she said, what's wrong? And I said, oh, Mrs. Smith was so unhappy about her meal. And she said she doesn't like what we sent. And she made me stay there to look at it and taste it. And Sister Alice Marie Quinn was the founder of that program. And she said, Daryl, she's just lonely. Talk to her. She just needs somebody to talk to her. And that really put a whole different spin on my understanding of what Meals on Wheels does. People are very isolated and they really need us to just extend a little kindness, just to say, we're here. And it is really it's a wonderful mission, and it is really a blessing to be able to do it.
Yeah. Oh gosh, you brought a tear to my eye. I'm listening to you. I'm getting really absorbed in this and in your story about this person and this entire situation there. Because I would have thought the same thing. I would have said they didn't like the meal. So that's great. That's a great lesson learned, right? Sometimes there's another reason why someone is doing what they're doing, and she just wanted a little company. That's incredible. Talk to us about funding. How do you get your funding? It's got to be quite expensive to feed this many mouths every single year up and down California. I know you get state funding, but you also get private funding. Can you explain that to us?
Yes. So Meals on Wheels California is not a fundraising organization per se, although we do have operational expenses covered. But the individual Meals on Wheels programs are funded through private donations as well as government funding. In some cases, programs are not accepting any government funding, so they're depending solely on private funds. And then others are doing a hybrid. but more and more people, I think programs throughout the state will be getting more into the funding that the state is providing. And one of the big mission points that we have at Meals on Wheels California is to help advocate for increased funds for senior nutrition. And the reason it's so important is because, everybody thought California was a young state. Well, guess what? We're not going to be a young state much longer. By 2060, the number of Californians over the age of 65 is expected to have tripled. So, and we are not prepared in the infrastructure sense to take care of that additional burden. So right now, Meals on Wheels California is working with legislators, the Department of Aging in California, and across the state with our representatives to try to help them understand the importance of this state or federal funding, because the number of people who are already living below the poverty line in California is about 45.6. That's in people 65 older. It will jump significantly in the next 2-3 years. And we don't have affordable housing. We don't have enough programming. We don't have enough support systems to even think about the isolation. The mental health is a huge issue now for seniors. Yeah. So that's what we do at Meals on Wheels California. We try to raise not only our voices, but the understanding of what our programs do.
How many folks work for Meals on Wheels or work with you or throughout the state? Could you tell us?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. And I can't tell you the answer because every program is different. Yeah. And we have, in our membership of Meals on Wheels California, we have many different kinds of programs. We have those that are over $2 million annually, and we have those that are under $500,000 annually. So you have everything from, there's a program in Northern California, for instance, that is completely run by volunteers. There's one in Santa Barbara that's completely run by volunteers. But most programs have staff, and we have relied traditionally on volunteers to deliver all the meals. That's just a standard that's been set by Meals on Wheels. But of course, with the pandemic, things changed. And so volunteers are badly needed now to go back and deliver the meals. And then the staff is freed up to do their work in the office. There's lots of reporting. There are a lot of intricacies, and the
I can't imagine
of Meals on Wheels programs. I mean, think about if you had to make 7 different meals every night for your family. It's unbelievable what programs do and how much heart they put into it.
No, Daryl, I can hardly get one meal on the table, let alone, 7 types of meals going various places in my community. No, I wouldn't be able to do it. I would be able to help deliver, however. So how can people get involved if they want to do that? And they say, you know what, I can do that. I have the time to do that. I'd love to help. Let us know.
So you can either go to your local Meals on Wheels program, which in LA, there's several of them. There's St. Vincent Meals on Wheels. There's Meals on Wheels West. There's Culver Palms. There's West LA Meals on Wheels. Any of those programs would be happy, I think, to have additional volunteers. And if you don't know which your local program is, you can go on the Meals on Wheels California website, which is mowca.org. And on the landing page, there's a big button that says Find Meals, takes you to a map of California. You just put in your zip code and it tells you which programs serve there in that zip code. So you could call any of those for volunteering. Or if all that fails, just send me an email, daryl@mowca.org, and I will put you in the right direction.
Yeah, wonderful. Any other parting words that you'd like to say? And also I want to give a shout out to St. Vincent Meals on Wheels. I know that you started with them, right? You started your career with them, didn't you?
I did. I was there for 30 something years.
I'd say you started for quite some time your career, because I know they do fantastic work.
I retired from St. Vincent Meals on Wheels, and I had previously been president of Meals on Wheels California board. So I was asked to come and take over the executive directorship. But I would like to share one thing, Deborah, which is how I became involved with Meals on Wheels, because I think it's something that is really important. I became involved because my grandfather had to be in assisted living for a bit. And I was visiting him, going back and forth from California to Arkansas. And one day I got there and my grandfather said, I want to go home. And I said, we have to ask the doctor. And the doctor came and told my grandfather, if you can get yourself dressed and walk to the end of the hall and back, I will discharge you now.
Oh.
I had never seen my grandfather cry. He was 91 years old. And God bless him, he got up, he got himself dressed. It wasn't perfect. And he walked to the end of the hall and back, and he was crying. He just wanted to be in his own home. And that is something that we have to consider when we talk about Meals on Wheels. These are people who want to be where they're comfortable and where they understand their environment. And that's why we have to be there for them.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. It's a little heartbreaking too. You know, my mom, I brought her out here with my dad when she seemed to be failing a bit. And I actually had her here and then in assisted living. And one day I visited her and she said, Deborah, I want to go home. And home was Florida. And I said, Dad, you've got to get somebody to care for her. You can't do it yourself. So I let them go home. And, you know, sadly, she died a few weeks later because she fell. But she wanted to be home. And I really understand that no matter what care she was getting, she wanted to be in her own home. So I really appreciate that story. You know, people do want to be home. And we do need to look at that as we're all aging, that a lot of folks may want to go into a living situation assisted, but a lot of folks don't. And what Meals on Wheels does is really extraordinary. So I really want to say to people, please look up the local Meals on Wheels, email Daryl, just get involved, you know, even if it means you're showing up and delivering a meal and spend a few moments if they want. It makes a big difference. So thank you, Daryl.
Thank you, Deborah. Pleasure to be with you today.
Same with you. And thank you, everybody, for joining our show, Deborah Kobylt Live. This is near and dear to my heart, also because of what I just explained to you. I remember what my own family went through and the wonderful work that Daryl and everyone there at Meals on Wheels is doing. So please look them up and try and get involved. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Please spread the word about our show. You can find it on all video and audio platforms as a podcast. So look us up. Deborah Kobylt Live and Meals on Wheels. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.